Reading, writing and arithmetic. Those are the core lessons many of us remember from our school days. And while discipline in class wasn't always fun, for the vast majority it was never an option. But now a surprising number of parents are opting out of that educational norm altogether. Instead, they've decided to cater directly to their child's interests, whatever they may be. As Juju Chang now reports.
It's a common morning ritual, hustling the kids to get ready for school.
Are you guys getting hungry?
And parents for work. But as the school bus doors close, the Martin family isn't on it.
Want to go out and see the baby bunnies? Did you check on their food today?
The 4 Martin children, ages 11, 8, 5, and 2, simply don't go to school. Never have. They aren't homeschooled either. Instead, they're what's called unschooled.
Just picture life without school, so maybe a weekend. We wake up and we have breakfast and we just start pursuing what we're interested in doing.
Mom Dana Martin doesn't think her kids need to go to school to learn their ABCs.
Doesn't a child need to know who George Washington and FDR and JFK were?
I don't know. Do you think they do? Do you think it's necessary?
Your mom lets you kind of read and study whatever you want? What about like math? Does she ever force you to do math?
No, not really.
Unschooling is radical enough, but radical unschooling extends the laissez-faire philosophy to parenting. Meals, for example, are up to the kids.
Pasta with peanut butter sauce.
Yeah. Oh, you're going to have to try some.
Whatever they want, as long as it's in the house.
And so because we don't punish, we don't use the term rules, but we have a rhythm to our day.
Dad Joe works from home building wooden toy sets. In this home, there's no bedtime, no alarm clocks in the morning, so 11-year-old Devin often stays up past midnight.
Devin stays up until 1 o'clock in the morning.
Sometimes. And I'm so happy that he does and that he has that time to himself. He can have a nice 3-4 hours with Joe or just me.
They're fighting again.
What time do you usually wake up?
Around 10.
Oh my goodness.
Well, it's the same amount of sleep.
So while kids everywhere are studying history
in the summer of 1765
and geography,
Bering Strait,
the Martin kids are free to pursue their own intellectual curiosity. Devin's baking projects involve measurements and creativity.
About 8 to 6 cups of flour.
I just personally don't believe in that humans learn best when they're trying to learn something that somebody else is telling them to.
While they aren't always idle, there are no tests, no homework, no lesson plans. If you're wondering, unschooling is legal because it falls under the guidelines of homeschoolers, so the regulations vary from state to state. Dana says her children have learned reading and math without formal instruction, but when we asked 11-year-old Devin a basic multiplication question, he stumbled.
It permeates our culture, that this is about, working hard, getting to the next step.
Sometimes they'll ask me, how do your kids learn if they're having fun all day? Like they so don't equate learning with fun.
Right, so how do your kids learn if they're just having fun?
Whatever they're interested in, I try to bring as much of that into their life as possible with as many resources as possible.
We followed the Martins on a rainy day in Madison, New Hampshire to see how this learning through osmosis works. They went on a field trip. First stop, the Weather Discovery Center. A lot of fun, but not always easy for Dana to make her point.
It says wind is caused when air flows from an area of high pressure to an area of low pressure.
So what did you learn?
I learned not to stand on top of a mountain.
At the rock shop,
How much is it? How much is it?
You're going to do that.
the store owner quizzes them.
Remember what it does?
The response?
How do you see your kids' future lives playing out? High school, college age, beyond?
I don't really necessarily project. I just want them to be happy.
But I'm stunned that you've never thought about what kind of jobs your kids would end up doing.
Well, I don't know. Does anybody know? Do you know? Can you picture what kind of jobs your kids would have?
My son wants to be the Yankee third baseman, so right now it's a little off.
Perhaps not the best long-term plan. Dana, though.
off-grid parenting, moving towards self-sustainability and being a bit more free-range, less institutionalised.
The Allen family adopts an all-natural approach to every aspect of parenting.
When I fell pregnant, I very much felt I didn't want any medical intervention, and so for me the only way to achieve that was to step out of the system.
We did receive some very interesting messages, such as what if your choices end up in your child being born dead, which then obviously added to our own stress. Well, I was convinced in trusting Adele. I trusted that she just knew her body and that she knew her mind and that she wouldn't do anything wrong.
Gregory Adams is 11, his sister Aries is 8, and so some people freak out when they see this. What on earth are their parents thinking, they ask? Letting kids wander alone, crossing streets by themselves, deep in the dense and dangerous jungle we know and fear as Brooklyn.
We really wanted our kids to be independent.
Alina Adams says it's a good thing to let her children learn early to take responsibility for themselves.
The only way that you can make a person independent is if you allow them the opportunity to make their own choices and, most importantly, to make their own mistakes. Because how is anyone ever going to develop good judgment if no one has ever given them the opportunity to make a decision?
For instance,
I was playing on the scaffolding once. I did forward roll and I fell on my face, and now I know next time not to play on the scaffolding because I'll fall on my face.
Do you think you learn more from making mistakes than you do from getting everything right?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah.
Alina sees herself as the antidote to the overprotective helicopter parent. She's a free-range parent.
I was a free-range parent before I knew I was a free-range parent.
Some might condemn Alina as the world's worst mom, but that would be unfair. This is the world's worst mom. Lenore Skenazy, writer, TV host, and mom of 2 boys.
World's worst, yep.
She also invented and owns the trademark for the term free-range kids, about which she's doing a radio interview at the moment.
Free-range kids is the movement I started, and you'll recognize them because they're just plain old kids raised the old-fashioned way.
This all started when Lenore let her son Izzy ride the subway all by himself.
I wasn't scared, but I was excited. Kind of like a jittery excited that I can't believe I'm finally doing this.
Okay, wait, you're thinking this isn't such a big deal. But here's what Izzy looked like when he first took that subway ride by himself. He was 9. It was all his idea. His mom just set it up. She left him at Bloomingdale's with a subway map, a fare card, and $20. He rode from Midtown Manhattan to Queens on the subway and then transferred to a bus home. And a few days later, his mom wrote a column about it.
The reaction was that I got labeled America's Worst Mom. If you Google America's Worst Mom, I'm there for 77 Google pages. I mean, I just looked it up the other day. It's like 3 million hits.
The idea of abduction is a very rare event.
So I was on all these shows instantly and being grilled, you know, why would you do this? And don't you care? And how would you have felt if you died? Like horrible questions.
You could have gotten the same experience in a safer manner. Right, well, let me ask you about that.
But what is the same experience is going on the subway, and that is safe. It's safe to go on the subway. It's safe to be a kid. It's actually safe to ride your bike on the streets. We're like brainwashed because of all the stories we hear that it isn't safe, but those are the exceptions. That's why they make it to the news. This is like boy boils egg.
The emails started coming in, but the people who thought Lenore was the world's worst mom were outnumbered by those who thought she'd hit the nail on the head in a world scared witless by day-to-day living. Statistics show crime is lower now than when today's parents were kids, and cities especially are safer.
So I started my blog, the Free Range Kids blog, that very weekend, to say my side of the story, which is that I love my children. I love safety. I love helmets, car seats, seat belts, mouth guards. Invite me to a baby shower, and the gift I inevitably bring is a fire extinguisher, right? So I'm not anti-safety. I just don't believe that our kids need a security detail when they leave the house. And that's where I realized I was slightly out of step with the rest of my country and yours.
Maybe not so out of step. Skenazy has parlayed her parenting philosophy into a reality TV show, and her idea of free-range parenting is taking root in other countries. The Land is a documentary about a playground in northern Wales that looks like this. Kids are encouraged to make their own fun in what really is a junkyard. And they do, even literally playing with fire. It's been going for about a year and no one's been hurt.
Moving.
But there's angst out there and it can get ugly.
That's just happy.
Devora Mativ is 6. Her parents give her and her older brother a lot of freedom. They sometimes walked from a park that's about 1.5 kilometers away to their home in Silver Spring, Maryland. Once, a neighbor who saw them walking alone called police.
Okay, how old do they look?
Maybe 7. Little boy, maybe about 7, 8. Little girl, maybe about 6.
Okay, and you don't see any parents around them?
No, ma'am.
For the Mativ family, that was the start of months of trouble with the police and with Maryland's Child Protective Services, CPS.
The people who came the first time, they spoke very plainly. They said, what you're doing is against our policy.
CPS said that?
Yeah.
And what did you say?
Well, we looked into the law and we did not see a connection, so we said we were going to test your policy.
Right. Or we're not, I mean, not so much test, but we don't see a reason to change our parenting style based on some arbitrary decision from CPS.
A few months later, when police saw the kids walking home alone together again, they picked them up. But they didn't take them home. They didn't take them to the police station. They just held them.
This is, in fact, where the kids sat for 2.5 hours in the back of a police car.
A police car.
Right, nobody called us. Nobody walked the 2.5 blocks to tell us where the kids were.
Eventually, police took the kids to Child Protective Services, where they were held until about 10 o'clock that night. The Mativs didn't get their kids back until they signed a statement saying the children would not be left alone when off their own property. All of that has since been dropped, and the Mativs are suing CPS. Lenore Skenazy's view is that if people want something to worry about, they should worry about how much more intrusive government and policing agencies are becoming in the lives of parents. Skenazy says she likes to pose this question to parents. Think of something you did as a kid, that you loved doing, that you don't let your own kids do. And then think about why that is. Keith Bogue, CBC News, New York.